Talk with Mitch Lafon.
We are speaking with the Canadian guitarist Philip Sayce. The new album is Spirit Rising, as we say here in Montreal. Bonjour, Philippe. How are you?
Je suis bien. Ça va bien?
Oui, ça va très bien. Talk to me about this new album and in terms of how do you sort of put it together? You've done a lot of stuff in the past. You've done stuff with Melissa Etheridge, with Jeff Healey. Talk to me about sort of composing this one, because it's been a while since the last one. It's been a couple of years, a few years, in fact. Talk to me about the message and what you're saying on this one.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So, this is probably of all the music that I've had the privilege and pleasure of recording and working. This is some of the deepest and most challenging material that I've really come up with, and particularly around losing my dad during the process, and that really was something that was unexpected, and so ultimately the album and the music on it, the performances are all dedicated to my dad, and the influence that he has had on me in my life and journey as a musician. And so in a lot of these songs, I think we spoke just before we came on live and talked a little bit about writers like Marty Fredrickson and Richard Marx, and Gavin Brown, who's a great Canadian talent. Maya Davies collaborated with her as well on this. So, really, really brought some talented and inspirational artists to collaborate with, to really try to really make a statement with this music. And so I'm grateful to have learned from my friends like that.
Let me quickly talk about your dad, because my dad is currently in a palliative care home and it doesn't look like it's going to go well. What did he mean to you in terms of your career? Because when you talk to a lot of musicians, they say, "Oh, when I was 14, my dad wanted nothing of me. He said, go get a real job." But it sounds to me as though your dad was different. What did he mean to you in getting started? Did he buy the first guitar? Did he go to the first show? What was he like in terms of support?
Yeah, thank you for asking again. I mean, it's a really, really, it's very meaningful to me. And certainly, first and foremost, as well, I want to wish you and your family much peace during this time. It's
thank you.
There are no words to put that feeling into context. So my heart is with you. My dad really, my mom and my dad really introduced me to the music that I love when I was super little. They enrolled both my brother and I in music courses when we were little. My brother has also had a music career, but at a certain point he made a choice to go into becoming a lawyer. But he had a pretty successful band in Canada that was called Tangiers, and so we just grew up in a musical family where expression was okay. It was cool to make music, and I think as I got invited to play with people like Jeff Healey and that type of opportunity, or it started to become real serious. And the people that we were listening to at home, such as Jeff Healey or Stevie Ray Vaughan, I never got to see or meet Stevie. I would have really loved that, especially to have seen him. But that was the music we grew up with: George Harrison, Beatles, Stones, Kinks, Ry Cooder, Buddy Guy, Albert Collins, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jeff Healey, Eric Clapton. All of this music was what was playing.
Don't forget Joe Bonamassa. Otherwise, I'll have to text him and tell him you didn't mention him.
Oh, you know what? We didn't listen to him, so.
But you got to love and respect Joe. Joe's the best.
Oh yeah. Joe is an amazing player, that's for sure.
Well, let me ask you quickly about those influences, because you're talking about a lot of blues players, a lot of those guitar players, and yet you're working with Marty Fredrickson, who's worked with Buck Cherry, who's worked with Aerosmith, who's worked with Motley Crue and Ozzy Osbourne and all these sort of heavy metal guys. Were you at all influenced by any of those bands? And if not, how does the collaboration with a guy who writes for those bands work with a guy who writes like you do? How does that collaboration come about, and how does it end up working?
Well, it's interesting with Marty. We had a really interesting, our relationship. We've known each other for a really long time. I was working with Jeff Healey. He had come to Toronto to make a record with Jeff, and so he was producing Jeff. And so, I was around. I'd be in the studio playing a little bit, or we'd go play a live show. And Marty, he was in Toronto for a while, and we connected. And one night we went down to Grossman's in Toronto, and he came with me, and we went, and I sat in. I think he sat in too. think he played drums, now that I remember it. He's a great drummer. Anyway, we hit it off, and he just said, look, man, you need to come to LA. We're going to write some songs. We're going to get you going. So I did. I was still living in Toronto at the time. I flew down to Los Angeles. He was a man of his word, and we wrote a bunch of songs. And right around that time, he was also writing with Aerosmith. He was writing with a few people, and his career exploded. So suddenly it's Carrie Underwood. It's like all of this, on and on and on. But over the years, I mean, you know, we continue to stay in touch, and we've written a lot of cool songs together. And I consider him an inspiration for sure.
Well, listen, you'll have to set me up with an interview, because I've interviewed Jim Vallance and Desmond Child, and I just love the songwriter stories. I think they're fascinating. In terms of playing with Jeff Healey, you've appeared on Live at Montreux and some of the other albums. What do you learn from Jeff? Because he was unfortunately sort of a shooting star in the Canadian industry. He passed away before he got to really be, you know, forever and always. What do you learn from him? Because he really was a unique player.
He sure was. You know, a very unique spirit. Really, in a lot of ways, there were very few that could be considered his peer. And so, whether that be somebody, you know, from whatever genre of music, he was at he was at a pinnacle of what he was able to receive from the universe, and what he was able to channel and bring through himself, and to ultimately to play or sing. And you know, I mean, we talk about a lot of players. There are a lot of great ones, but there are only a few that are on that top shelf. And Jeff is without question. I mean, you know, on that shelf and then some. And you know, in a lot of ways, I think about it, because when I worked with Jeff, I started right out of high school pretty much. And so instead of going to university, I went to the University of Jeff Healey, and every single night, he stretched me like Gumby. He just pulled me as far as I could go, and then further than that. And then he was like, that's all you brought to the table, man? Come on. So he would really, like, you know, I see it in a lot of ways, like you know, my rookie year, I got to, my first 4 seasons in the NHL, I got to play with Sidney Crosby. It's kind of like that, you know, it's kind of like, I got to play, you know.
And then you moved over to Melissa Etheridge. I mean, like, hello. You know.
Well, and that was, you know, I never really intended, by that point I'd moved to Los Angeles, and I wasn't intending to play for anybody else, but I was here, my wife and I were here, and they're like, what are we going to do? And I got a call, first I got a call from the Uncle Cracker camp, who comes out of like Kid Rock and all that. And he had a huge hit at the time. And so I came in and played on the record, ended up playing on the record, and then toured with Uncle Cracker for about 1.5 years while Drift Away was #1 everywhere. And it was a really special experience. And from that, I got a call to join Melissa Etheridge's group. And, you know, again, that was like a University of Melissa Etheridge type experience. There's only one of her. Right, there's only one person that sings like that, performs like that, and she could do a 4-hour show sometimes. It would be crazy. She's just an amazing spirit, and I'm thankful to have learned from her.
Oh, absolutely. So talk to me about that in terms of being your own frontman and the leader of your own band, and then being a guy that's playing for, because you look at some people like Liberty DeVito, you look at Chuck Berge with Billy Joel. These guys have had these successful careers. Kevin Valentine, they stay home and they do this stuff. You could obviously go do that and be the player in a band. Talk to me about the challenges of being Philip Sayce, the lead guy, and also thinking, well, maybe I should just go back and just be the studio guy and be the guy they call when they need a cool guitar part on the whatever album.
Yeah, you know, I think starting out, that was never my intention. And, you know, as you know, any kind of call, anybody that's called me to, you know, thankfully, if anybody has called me to collaborate, I think about what's in my heart first and foremost. It's not important. It's the marquee of it, that can come and go, right? At the end of the day, when you're playing for someone else, whether it's, you know, whoever it is, you're in their house, you're on their stage. So I always approached it as an apprentice, that I was there to learn. And both Jeff and Melissa approached it that way as well. It's very interesting that Jeff, from day one, said, I want you to join my band. we're going to take you around the world and we're going to teach you, we're going to teach you how to, did I lose you there for a second? My bad. But basically Jeff just said, look, we're going to groom you and we're going to teach you how this is done. And then we're going to set you on your own way. And so that was Jeff's intention from day one. He's like, I'm going to help you and then launch you. The same with Melissa Etheridge. She knew that, I'm doing my own thing, but let's kind of work together. And it turned into a beautiful relationship. And at a certain point, both Jeff and Melissa, they knew that it was time for me to do my own thing. It was never any question.
Right.
So, for me to, and even from day one, there's never been a question, but if Melissa Etheridge calls and says, hey, you want to make a couple records? I don't think you say no. I think you say, well, what can I learn from this amazing woman,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I interviewed Melissa, she absolutely. Anyway, let's get back to Spirit Rising. In terms of the album's release, it comes out, of course, during the COVID era, the COVID pandemic. A lot of bands chose to hold stuff off for 2021. Some bands said, okay, I'm going to release it. I'm of the opinion, and I had this conversation with Doc McGee, where we said, you know what? Right now is the time to release it because everybody's at home and they can listen. But the other train of thought is, well, I can't tour on it. Talk to me about the challenges of having it out now and not being able to tour on it, but also the smart part of having out now so somebody can sit at home and actually digest it.
Right. And I think it's such a wonderful topic and question. And, everybody has a different view on this. And so I'll certainly just speak from my own heart and not for anybody else. But I'm here to be of service through my music in this lifetime. And for me, from my perspective, the music that I play is all about what I'm feeling, what my experience is, and really trying to connect with a listener in a way that is, whether they like it or not, in some ways is irrelevant. It's about how can I, through service, through music, connect with people. And if it does reach them, maybe make their day a little bit better. If it resonated with them, even for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the length of a song, if it took them out of a space that was negative, oh, that's the most wonderful gift to me. So to hold back a record during a pandemic, after giving it, some thought, from just taking time for myself to digest it, it would have been a disservice to not release the music. I think that artists, they need, again, I don't want to speak for anybody else. Myself as a musician and a performer and an artist, my job is to be of service here during this time. Nobody can go out and tour, but I don't know if we're going to be able to tour in the same way ever again. And we're just going to have to see how it goes. So to sit around and say, well, I'm not going to play until I can make all the money is kind of like what the problem is with everything to begin with. I have no interest personally in going back to the way that things were. This music it's sweat, blood, tears, and soul power. And so, no, I had no intention of holding it back.
Yeah, and for those that do hold it back, I have a respect for that because obviously you can choose to do what you want with your music. But at the same time, if everything comes out in 2021, instead of having 10 albums to sort through, there's going to be 250 albums. You're going to get just as lost anyway. So
Totally hear you. I mean, it's like there's not a right or wrong, and I think everybody just has to go from their own gut. And for me, I'm grateful for the opportunity to partner with Warner Music Canada on my release. And and I think the exciting part about it is that this music has come out. I think the response has been very different from anything that I've had before. It's a lot. It's really exciting, and I'm really grateful. And I think I'm also writing a whole bunch of songs while I'm at home. So letting Spirit Rising do its thing and reach people through Spotify, through whatever streaming platform you're using at this time. We can't go out and play. So I'm going to write a whole new record, which I've got a lot of new stuff. And who knows if we're even going to ever release a record again. It's like one song at a time, right? Like whatever.
Hey, listen, singles have worked for a lot of bands. Just ask Right Said Fred. Do you remember them? My God.
Yeah.
What a horrible reference. What a horrible reference.
Oh, that's
but anyway,
good though. I love
for
it.
the Macarena. But no, jokes aside, in terms of, because you talked about how you don't think we're going to be able to tour the same way. The way I see it is that if you're an A-level band, a U2, a Madonna, or whatever, Metallica. You want to go play the Staples Center in LA, they will open the door and they will greet you. The problem that I'm seeing is the B-list and C-list bands that are going to play clubs, they might not have a playground to go to. There's going to be play at home in your living room or play the Staples Center and no middle ground. Do you see that as a potential problem? And is there going to be either the have and have nots and no more middle ground?
I love it. Again, I love where you're coming from. These are great topics. I personally,
to use a sports analogy, the development league, the A ball and the B ball, which are the clubs, 80% of them might fail. How do you route a tour when there's no clubs to go to?
Right. How does society work when 99% of the people have, 1% has all the wealth and 99%, it's just going to mirror what we're already existing in. Right. And there will always be a way to, not to use the term eke out an existence, but there will be ways that it will happen. It might be more underground. But I do agree with you. A lot of clubs are going. A lot of clubs are really trying to stay alive that have been around for decades. Are we going to need booking agents anymore? Unless you're Bono, or you're Rihanna or Drake.
Right. Are you at all fearful?
Hell no. No.
Okay.
Because for me, my whole life, it has felt really in this kind of music, when people say blues music, roots music, blues rock, that music has been kind of like my whole life since I was 18. So I don't really, I do what I do. And like I said, I'm here for a short amount of time on this planet. I'm going to do the very best that I can with the music that I'm making. And I'll play as long as I can. And I think that's it.
Well, the good thing about blues musicians is that it's not the music du jour. So you can usually eke out a good 30, 40-year career as long as you're doing it well, because the fan base is always there. Talk to me though about going into that style of music. When you're playing with a Melissa Etheridge, who's a little more on the pop side, at least back in the early days with Come to My Window, and you work with Marty Fredrickson. Do you think to yourself, hey, maybe I should go into pop rock writing or rock writing or more radio friendly writing? Because trying to sell a blues record or a roots record or an Americana record can be difficult in the marketplace.
Sure. But it's not really, I don't necessarily also compartmentalize things in that way where I would say, okay, now I want to write a radio song. This particular record has, as far as I'm concerned, it's very radio ready. We haven't received any embrace in Canada for it yet, unfortunately, but I think, again, that's for me not what my priority is. The priority is to make the best song that it can be. And if it can resonate with a radio list, I don't listen to the radio, so I don't really know. But if, again, what I was saying a moment ago, the most important thing for me is that the music is honest and it comes from a place of what I'm feeling and what's really important to me. I've tried it another way where somebody has said, listen, you got to make this pop song, or we're in the business of making stars, not, we need a pop star. We don't need you around for a career. We need you around for a short, hot minute. I'm like, well, then you got the wrong guy. If you want to work with somebody, I've been doing this for a long time, and I care about it a whole lot. I care about the music, and I care about what's left behind. And so, that's way more important than, pretending like I might actually think, oh, I'll make some more money if I do a pop song. Whatever.
Well,
there's ever time to be honest in the art. It's right now.
But of course, there are many who write very commercially on purpose. They say, well, it's verse, chorus, don't bore me, get to the core. There are those that feel that way. In terms of being a Canadian artist, how important to you is CanCon? And for American listeners, that's Canadian Content Rules, where, radio stations and TV stations have to play Canadian content. Is that something that appeals to you? Is that something that is useful to you? Or is it something that has been outdated at this point with the internet and YouTube and Spotify and?
Yeah, I think that in my own I can't speak for anyone else. For me, it's hurt me, and
How
it's hurt.
so?
I think shifting and moving definitions around what is CanCon,
Right.
and submitting something that is CanCon, and then finding out later that, oh, it's not, so it's not going to get a push. I think stuff like that is bullshit, and it's not okay.
Well, listen, they declared Bryan Adams not Canadian content back in whatever 91 because he had written a song with a British producer, and it's like, really, Bryan Adams is not Canadian? Like, really?
Well, a slap in the face to a guy who's an ambassador. Like, he's been an ambassador for decades to Canada, so
right.
But I don't make the rules, So if suddenly a song is not Canadian content, well, I was just doing what I was told to do and was told was okay, but now it's not okay, so I'll write another song.
It is now in terms of the song, because you're writing honest music and honest songs. Now, this one you talked about your dad. Where does the inspiration normally come from? Do you sort of just look around and go, "Ooh, butterflies! I'm going to write a," not to be facetious, but is it sort of that kind of like it comes from the gods kind of thing? Or do you sort of sit down and go, okay, now I'm going to have a writing session and I'm going to spend the next 2 hours locked in my room and I'm going to, how do you approach it? Inspiration or perspiration?
I love that question. Both are true. Both are true. Right. For sure, different songs require a different touch, and I think as you touched on, sometimes, as much as I'm saying, I want to be as honest and authentic in the writing, sometimes, you do need to give people something that they can hang on to. So it's a real delicate balance between kind of like, letting somebody take over what your song is versus finding a great spot where there's like a collaboration happening. So you're learning from the other person, you're still being you, and then you have a song. And then when that song also has hooks, that's amazing. That's ultimately where we landed with this record. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent here, but
it's okay. We like that.
What's that?
I said we like that.
Question. Sorry, I went out there.
But we were talking about the inspiration and the perspiration. So for you, do you write from I'm inspired? Oh, look, there's bunnies in the backyard, or is it, man, I gotta sweat this out. I gotta finish a song tonight. Get in the room and lock the door.
Yeah, I think a lot of times with lyrics, sometimes, with revision and revision and revision and revision, like, you'll write the lyrics 200 times before you let anybody even hear it. So with that's where some of that sweat equity comes in for sure. And you sometimes, you just, or you can't quite figure out why is this, or you write a song and you realize like, holy shit, that's a Pearl Jam song already, or something, it's like, so I think both are true, but ultimately whenever I listen to Albert Collins, who's one of my favorite guitar players, musicians ever, that's when some juices start flowing, because he was a supernatural guitarist. And but the same is true. A beautiful day might bring out a melody. So it's a great question though.
Yeah, you're sitting there going, I got these great lyrics. It's roll over Beethoven. You've never Chuck oh
shit. Yeah.
Where do we go from here? I mean, normally when you ask that question, it'll be like, well, we're going to go on tour and we're going to go do this, and now there's sort of like no answer. But is it, listen, I did Spirit Rising, let me go write Spirit Rising 2, let me go write where do we go from here? Is it all, I'm going to be the streaming star? What do we do? Where does 2020, 2021 go for you?
Yeah, so for me right now, I think it's about pivoting for sure. I think it's about keeping the antennas up, antennae. I don't know what the plural is of antenna, but anyway, keeping those up and really keeping an open mind. So at this time, I'm collaborating with Fender, which has been really nice to really start to work together on a few things, and that's great. I've also started putting the wheels in motion with a friend of mine to make some real customized guitar pieces, and we've had a lot of interest around that as well. I think it's really diversifying and trying to create as many income streams as possible. So even if an income stream is like, $100 a month, Well, if you have 100 income streams, then it can become livable. So you're selling t-shirts, you're, coming up with cool guitar pickups with your friends, you're making new guitar pedals. At the same time, also, I've got a lot of new songs that I'm really excited about. And so I think part of it is also having constant content. We're at a time now where it's going to be, content consumption on crack. So it's
content is king. I mean, listen, I do
Yeah.
3 shows a week and I've done 4 interviews today. Content is king. There's nothing more disappointing than going to an artist's Twitter or Facebook and go, oh, it hasn't been updated since January. It's like,
Right.
why am I here? Like, you got to keep pumping. Just real quick, since you mentioned Fender and the guitars, how important or how involved are you in the instrument that you play? Do you just sort of go to whatever Steve's music store or Long and McQuaid and pick one off, or are you one that gets in there and wants the pickups and the Floyd Rose Rammy bar? Like, how involved are you in all of this stuff? Is it just buy it at Walmart, or no, I want a custom build?
Yeah, I'm a turbo nerd for sure.
Okay,
I love the old stuff. I love stuff that's been around for 50 years plus, because those guitars, a lot of times when you get the good ones, they really have a patina to the tone that is, you could pay a lot of money for on a new guitar. It would sound great, but those old ones, when they're good, they have.
But you did mention working with Fender. Are you developing a Philip model, or are you working on some kind of stuff for other people? Like, what exactly are you developing with Fender? Because that's kind of cool. In fact, that's very cool.
Well, yeah, I think it's something that, ultimately right now we're collaborating on different involvement with their community through online platforms. And, certainly have started talking about some different instruments and things, but it's one day at a time right now. And I think ultimately just happy to be collaborating with, with Fender, who have been just a real pleasure to get on board with and to work with, and their enthusiasm and just kind of excitement for embracing this online world that we are really fully immersed in now. I love the way they're thinking. It's definitely forward thinking as a company, and they have a new platform that's called Fender Play, and they're trying to invite new players to come in and learn how to play and sort of help them to learn how to play. So it's fascinating. I love what Fender's doing.
Yeah, so do I. But do they have a cool graphic like I do? Probably not. That's what.
You know what? It's cool, but it ain't like that. That's heavy.
It ain't like that. No, done by Claudio Bergman, working for Judas Priest. On that, Philip, an absolute pleasure. Of course, Spirit Rising is available now. Do go stream it, buy it. Well, actually, buy it. Owning Air is not that much fun. Owning a real CD is kind of fun. There you go. Merci, monsieur. Thank you.
Mitch, thank you so much. And before we hang up here, thank you for having me on your show, or thanks for taking time for me and asking such thoughtful questions as well.
Thank you.
Who you got in this Montreal series?
Pardon me?
Who do you have in this Montreal Pittsburgh series, hockey series?
Listen, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but yeah, let's see.
Who's the thing your can turn to flames? I can't see.
Well, right there. That is a Ken Dryden autograph that I got when I was a kid because he was my neighbor. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Ken. I lived in a place where Ken Dryden was my neighbor. Bill Stoneman lived down the street, who played for the Expos, and Joe Barnes, the Alouettes quarterback, all lived down the street. So I'm sold on the Canadians. I think they can beat the Penguins, and why not? Because hey, the Habs have a horrible team sometimes, but when everybody's healthy, Shea Weber, Patrick Waugh, Price.
I know what you mean. I know. Yes.
The Habs have talent, but they've been injured. So I think we've got it. Who do you have? Please don't tell me Toronto. I'm not Toronto.
Well, and also Montreal's strong coaching as well. So I think that's
yeah.
That's part of it. And we don't need to talk about as you said, the goaltending. It's out of the park. Tampa, I think, has gotten. I'm not necessarily I don't follow Tampa other than know that they're brilliant, but I feel like they got the short end of the stick the last few years. Like they kind of tore up the lead last year. They've been hot for a while and they haven't won it. And I don't know, they look super strong coming back. So Tampa's always pretty scary.
Well, the thing about this year is that every team goes into the playoffs healthy.
Yeah.
There's nobody that has the excuse of the last 2 weeks was a tough schedule and we were tired. No, there's no excuses. Everybody's at 100. Shea Weber's at 100%. Austin Matthews is at 100%. So we're going to really see who can win based on the people on the ice with no excuses.
Right. I don't know. You're absolutely right. You know, the only guy who's not 100%, sadly, is Jake Muzzin. And that's,
but of course he got injured during play. So, I mean, you know, that's good. But he was healthy going into it.
Oh yeah. No. He was great going into it, but that was really sad to see that. I didn't like that at all.
No, but it really didn't look like much. I mean, it seemed to be a, running out of time. We've removed the 40 limit on your group meeting. Okay, great. Thank you, Zoom.
Start talking hockey now. All bets are off. Oh, no.
I know, but they just put up a warning on my screen saying we've been at 40 minutes. No, but you look at that play and you see him go down. You go, oh my God, he's faking it. How horrible! And then they bring out the stretcher, and you go, oh, okay, he's not faking it. And then they say he's not going to be in the series. You go, really? He bumped his knee. Like it didn't look like the end of the world, you know. But
I think he was down. Like that was the horrific part. 15 minutes he was down. That was like.
Yep. And in a silent building, it is eerie. Completely.
That was terrible. That was like. Ugh.
I know. The silent building with an injury is just like, you just hear the cavern and you just go, oh, okay.
I haven't seen yet, not that because I don't necessarily look for it. I don't necessarily enjoy it, but the hockey fights must be weird too. Like just quiet with two dudes punching each other. Like weird.
Hockey. And it's not just that. They keep talking about social distancing and wear a mask. And now, you know, they're punching each other and they're bleeding. And you go, that's probably not real good. But
I'm with you. That's really not the best idea, but
you know, even at the end of the Rangers series with the Hurricanes, they were like, are they going to line up and shake hands? And they sort of lined up and fist bumped real quick. And it was like, okay, I'll take a fist bump with your glove on. Okay, I'll give you that anyway.
Yeah, that's true. They won't be shaking hands anymore.
No, how can you? But it's also strange. It's like, well, wait a minute. I was just knocking you in the corner and now I can't shake your hand. It's like, you know, anyway.
Yeah, right. Oh man.
Anyway, it's an interesting time that we're living in. Even for me, I mean, you know, I'm doing these on Zoom now with flames behind me. I mean, you know.
Oh, the flames are working, by the way.
Well, let me see if I go there. You go.
Oh, I dig it. Oh, I can dig that. That's nice.
Rock time. Yeah. I'm telling you, Claudio is the man for art. Firepower by Judas Priest. That cover is fantastic.
I came underdressed for this. I should have had some crazy background to join you. I'm sorry.
I'm wondering if I can add backgrounds to you. I don't think I can. The best is I did Joe Bouchard of Blue Oyster Cult, formerly a Blue Oyster Cult, the other day, and he came prepared. So every so often he would click, and there would be a picture of him in the band in like 1975. It was it was the greatest interview ever. He kept flipping his backgrounds. He's like, here's me and my brother, and he's just talking and flipping them as he's talking. It was fantastic.
Very funny. Yeah.
Oh, he was great. Anyway, on that, thank you, sir. As a great pleasure. And I will have this up in the next couple of days, and I will send it over to Warner, and you know, we can share on our socials. And let me see here. I'm at your Twitter at Philip Sayce, at Philip Sayce.
You know what? Twitter I don't use because it's a pulpit for the U.S. president, and you know, living in California, it's just been a bit much. So I'm really just hanging out over on Instagram and Facebook.
Okay, perfect. So I will send folks over to Instagram and Facebook, but there we go. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Dave, who's hiding in the background there, but thank you, Dave.
It's Dave here. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate your help.
Cheers, guys. Merci. Keep in touch.
Thank you for having me, Mitch. Be well.
Anytime. Let me hit stop.